Thank you for joining me. I was alone this morning online for my chill morning. I thought I'd live stream. And this has been in preparation for my desire to share the beginning of the most compassionate story. I had Hanukkah celebration and dinner with my parents and my adult child Saturday night. And well, it was wonderful to be together. And also my mother, who's 82, we were sitting at the Hanukkah dinner table and she said, wow, 2025 has been just the worst year of my life. What is happening? How is this happening? And I said, Mom, I think I could explain it. Actually, I do. But it would be a long story, too long for the Hanukkah dinner table. So we didn't get into it, rightly so. And for me, that's another call to continue my desire to share the most compassionate story, a new narrative for what the hell is happening here? What the F is going on here? In a compassionate, grounded in philosophical, anthropological, and scientific and spiritual fields, grounded in those fields. That can help some minds, whatever minds are attracted to this narrative, to come to a compassionate way of speaking to what, or thinking to what, speaking to what, thinking to what, walking from which through this life about what the F is happening here. Because there's a lot of stories out there, yeah, and many of them are scary, and most of them include a villain, an other. To where I sit, and if you're listening, perhaps you're in the same space as me. From where I sit, neither of those are wise. To go with a scary story is unwise. And I will speak to why. And at some point, I don't know if that'll happen today, but that's going to be part of the story, like a most compassionate story. It's unwise to go scary, and it's unwise to land on an other as a villain. And that will also be part of the story, the most compassionate story, as to why this consciousness sees that as unwise. And I'll use the fields of philosophy, anthropology, science, spirituality integrated to speak to why. and then speak to why it is important for us to have this narrative. Again, grounded in those 4 areas, those 4 fields. The core of what I would like to offer as perspective to finding the most compassionate story is this. Actually, I just said a moment ago, like, establish your credibility here before I go into this. My name is Jennifer Rivlin. I am a doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology. What is that? I would say I'm an expert on human behavior at work, or an expert of human behavior in the process of co-creating together in groups. The industrial part is the more systematized, mechanistic part of the field, and the organizational is the more group psychology part of the field. So I'm an expert in group behavior, and I have been doing this work since the 90s. I know I don't look that old, but I'm 54, about to be 55. And my work has been not academic, although I have my dissertation is in this area that I'm going to speak to. Oddly enough, it comes back again. Most of my work has been applied. So I spent the 90s and the early noughts in corporate America. I had my child and then did not want to go back to corporate America. I don't even think I need to say why. And instead started my own small business. Through that, which was another part of me calling me the entrepreneur, the desperately curious person about business, since I'd spent all this time in corporate America with the Fortune 100, feeling very confused around what the fuck was happening. Yeah, because it's just not the way the standard operating procedure. It just was never in alignment with my intuition. And really feeling the desire to understand leadership better. I had been in school as a young woman, and then suddenly out there speaking, teaching, leading around leadership, in leadership development, leading teams. And leadership is it's an art. And it's an art of maturity, honestly. And I didn't have the maturity in my 20s or my 30s. And I developed a lot of it being an entrepreneur and running my own small business. And then being a mother and a wife through my 30s and my 40s. And now in my 50s, I have an entirely different view of leadership, which is going to be part of the most compassionate story. But right now, I'm establishing my credibility with you and letting you know that I have not only been studying, applying these ideas for decades, I have also been a leader myself and an entrepreneur, and deeply, deeply immersed in business and co-creation, both in enterprise and also in community building. I was a lay leader That's what they call it. A person who gives their time and attention and money and energy towards a nonprofit or religious community. Um, so I was a lay leader for many decades as well. So my leadership experience is both academic and applied. It's both corporate and entrepreneurial. It's both profit driven and nonprofit. I had my underlying thread of my belief my entire life has been, of course, I say of course, because if you've been watching me and following me, um, relationships matter. And it is the success of human co-creation in groups is through harmonious and skilled relating. Now, I've known that my whole life. And I also wasn't harmonious and skilled in relating, um, not to the extent that's necessary. And I also want to, I'm not throwing myself under the bus here because I'm saying that from my new perspective, looking back on my old self. And then what I would say about my old self before I had my new perspective is that I was very skilled in relating because I understood intuitively um, people's needs, fears, and desires. And I had deep empathy and compassion naturally. And I was in codependency. So I was constantly looking to see what was needed and trying to give the circumstance what I believed it was asking for. Let's put it that way. Without a lot of awareness to my codependency patterns. So there you go. Old me was skilled in that pattern, from that pattern. New me sees that pattern as unskilled and a better way is possible. And that will be part of the story, of the most compassionate story that I'm beginning to tell today. Okay. Did I finish establishing my credibility? Industrial and organizational psychologist, entrepreneur. Oh, I have a knack for brands. I don't know. I don't know. I know my strengths and I know my limitations. Um, I have a knack for brands. And I think that's related to why I need to tell the most compassionate story because we kind of need a new brand for humanity. I don't know, I was going to say United States because we feel so disappointed in our country, but it's larger than that, right? Yeah, it's global. Um, yeah, I have a brand, actually, Modern Tribe, that is 18 years old. So proud of that. And I'm so grateful to myself for subconsciously creating this brand for a spiritual community, Judaism, that holds beauty as a standard, because we all know that there is a more beautiful life that is possible. Yeah. We all know that there's a more beautiful life that's possible. And so we each want to, in some way, a part of us, I believe, wants to contribute to that mission of creating the more beautiful life that we all know is possible. And that was my 30-year-old, 36, 37-year-old way of making the world more beautiful. It was strange. Back then, it felt like justice, felt like an injustice that there wasn't a beautiful Jewish ritual store. Now I feel bigger injustices and I can handle more. Okay, so let's move on to the most compassionate story. The crux of what I'd like to bring, or the core of the most compassionate story, to understanding why we can have one, where we can have a true, good, solid, that makes sense in the mind narrative of how human beings are I want to say good, but that's a simple way to put it. How human beings are innocent in the moment and also responsible over space and time, and that there is no villain in this story. None. No villain. No Illuminati. No. I mean, there's a paradox there. There are people out there who act in those ways, and no one's in control. So I would like to offer us a core of the story as to why the mind will be able to make sense that there is no villain. There's no villain. And there's hope. So the narrative isn't scary. God, I'm so afraid. I am full of fear as I sit here and talk. It's so interesting. It's not like this is the only chance I get to tell the story. This is just the beginning. And the truth be told, I've been telling it. Maybe that's why I'm so afraid. I've been telling the story. I've been telling it for years now. Parts of it's been evolving. And yeah, I haven't felt heard. And then another part of me didn't care if I was heard. Another part of me was like, just get it out, get it out, get it out, so that it's out. And now I get to synthesize it. And I guess that's what's scary. It's a big body of work. It's a lot to synthesize. But this is the core. And let me just go ahead and get to it. The core that's going to lead us out of the need for a scary story. It's going to give us hope. It's going to give us compassion. And it's going to show us that, okay, we really are innocent and we are all responsible for the patterns. We need to hold the innocence-responsibility paradox. Written about it many times. I'll explain it more later. But the structure that's going to hold that is the nested cultures. The nested cultures. Starts inside with our internal family system parts. It's a metaphor, of course. For God's sakes, it's all a metaphor, right? The whole narrative is a metaphor. No story is true, but I'm telling you a story that's going to help things make sense. Starts inside, then there's the pairwise, and then there's the family, and then there's the community, and then there's the global culture. And each one of those trains and maintains the other levels. And the beauty of me presenting that to you now, which I have been writing about for a couple of years, is that Michael Levin in the field of biology has a structurally same idea biologically of layers training and maintaining, and harmony or health in his biological models is trained and maintained across these different hierarchy of biological systems. So for him, it's microorganism, right? Or micro-cellular, cellular, organism, and upward. And in the structure that I am presenting, I'm talking about inside trains and the culture inside your internal family system, your parts, or however you deal with your own internal psyche, trains and maintains your pairwise relationship, all right, your partner, your spouse, your children, which then trains and maintains in the family, which then trains and maintains by the community, which is nested inside of a global culture. And all of it, okay, like people like to talk about the system. Yes, it's a system, but the system is infiltrated all the way down inside ourselves too, through the conditioning. So that's where we are both innocent in that we are deeply conditioned, plus we're nested inside multiple levels of culture that trains and maintains. And we're responsible. We're responsible because the only way to shift for ourselves and our families, our beloveds, is to work at the lower levels and create pockets of coherence, starting inside in your pairwise relationships, in your small groups, in your community. And you got the global, it's going to be a while. But like we can start now with creating more coherence inside, harmony, pairwise in our groups. And how we do that, that's also been, if you've been watching me and reading me, you see that I'm like all about the how, because I am very practical. I am very about, well, is this useful? Is this useful? Yeah, it's useful. It's very useful. Will it work? Yes, it'll work. It's been working for me on a small scale. I've been very, very, very hurt in the process of my whatever integration, if you want to call it that. So my relation, which is probably a blessing, my relation has had to like slow way down way down because I am intolerant of myself repeating the patterns of codependency that led me to this moment, which of deep grief and sadness and pain. I'm intolerant of slipping back into the patterns of codependency that led me to this moment of such deep grief and pain. So I go very slow and I'm very careful in my relationships. And that has helped me create these technologies, honestly. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap this up soon because I spilled the core. And my creative, just to let you in a little bit about my creative process is, well, showing up, speaking, using what comes through as speech, which is never rehearsed. It's never outlined. It's always inspired. Using that to help me structure and jump off into the next piece. And everything that's been unfolding today has been a result of what came through last week, where I was like, I could be the one. I could be the one who tells you that no story is true and that a story is really important. I could be the one that shows you the most compassionate story because I've co-created it. I've co-created it with life, basically, and the patterns that I have seen in my own self, and then recognize in others and see the other converging work that is also supportive, scientific, philosophical, and like I said, Michael Levin's work biologically. And there was an article that just came out about in the field of physics, that physics is now going to need to expand its I'll have to share the article. It's going to need to expand its theories to allow for like this kind of nested structure. It is nested. I mean, reality is nested. And maybe some of you just listening to this a little bit, maybe your mind can relax a little bit. You are responsible, but you're also innocent. You are responsible for your shitty behavior, and you've been an asshole. I know it. I've been watching. And it's okay. You're innocent too. See? And that's one of the ways that we're going to get out of the finger pointing and the naming and the blaming inside, pairwise, in the family, in the community, in the world. It all trains and maintains. It trains and maintains. It trains and maintains. So one of the things I would love to have said to my mother, my lovely 82-year-old mother, right now is she said, this has been the worst year, 2025. What the hell is happening? How is this happening? I said, Mom, you know what? I think I actually could explain like how this is happening. I think I could, but not at the Hanukkah table. But I'd also wish I could have said to her, maybe I'm saying it to her now, is that, Mom, you have a role to play. All of us do. And that we're not powerless. We're not. Because we can each create these little pockets of coherence inside, pairwise with your spouse, with your children, in your family. That's within most of our control. Now, it takes a lot of skill. It does. It takes skill. And especially today, because we have all these new models of relating, and we have generational differences, and we have tremendous misunderstanding. And that's leading to all the alienations that we're creating. So it takes skill, and we're rolling out the skills. Humanity's rolling out the skills. I see it happening. It's beautiful. So I'd say, Mom, you have a role to play, just like me and all of us, in bringing around world peace. It really is an inside job. I can show you how. It is, I'm telling you, it is the same structure. It's structurally analogous uh, to Michael Levin's work. Now, Michael Levin's work is in the field of biology, so he doesn't directly make claims around what ought to be. He's looking at what is, and what he's finding is, like I said, it's nested. Coherence is nested. So the microcellular, the cellular, the organ, the organism. I don't remember all his five. I'm going to remember it. Um, but each one has these biological processes and communicates, right, biologically through hormones and through all the ways that biological systems communicate with each other. Each level trains and maintains. That is what he observes. He doesn't make claims about what ought to be happening there, but it sure does look like a lot of good information for the medical system that in order to get to health, we need to have coherence across the board. In other words, the organism's coherence affects the microcellular expression. And when I say it to you like that, you're probably like, well, duh. Well, that's not the way the allopathic system, medical system treats us at all. It's not the way the food system treats us. It's not the way the schools treat us. It's not the way our organizations treat us. They don't treat us like the organism affects the cellular, microcellular level. If it did, we certainly would structure society differently. Anyway, I am making claims that across the 5 levels of organizational structure, there is a value of harmony or coherence that I would like to say is a North Star. And that's a value. That's outside of science. It's an ought. It's where philosophy comes in. It's where spirituality comes in. And it's where any model of organization, of co-creation, of leadership must step into. It must step into an ought, especially this day and age, because what has been built on a narrative of extraction. And that's part of why it was so confusing for me to be in corporate America. Because I had this idea that, well, of course, if your employees benefited and were not oppressed and were allowed to contribute their life force vitality to the group in a way that benefited them and trained and maintained their life force vitality, like, of course, that would be better for the organization. That was my naivete and not seeing that the actual structure was built not for that. It was not built for training and maintaining the organisms, the people's vitality. It was trained and maintained to extract the life force energy because there was always new to feed it. That's it's the capitalist fuel is growth. You kind of use the people up as like a life force vitality source. Um, And I mean, capitalism also, ideally would compensate somebody for their life force vitality. But what we've found is that we've gotten to the point where, wow, there's very little life force vitality left in a lot of people. And the younger people are like, I'm not freaking giving you my life force vitality. For what? Smartly. And then there's people like me who are older and fuck, I have nothing else going on in my life except work. That's it. Because and friends and dancing. I guess I have a lot of good stuff, but I don't have a family life, and I don't have a romantic relationship. And I spend my time problem solving in this area. It's my life's work. Oh, I didn't even mention part of the miracle of whatever this life is that my dissertation, which was on conflict resolution, I was really lucky in that I got to do my research in a big Fortune 100 company that had multiple locations all over the world. And those locations were nested in districts that was, of course, nested in the larger organization. And I got to measure organizational culture and a construct that I called conflict management climate um, at multiple layers. So at like the unit level, the division level, the unit level, the division level, and the global level. And I got to look at a relationship between climate for conflict resolution, which included relationship, of course, and especially perceived fairness and justice of direct supervisors. I got to look at it across these different levels, and I got to see the nestedness of these cultures and the effect. And it was very strange because back then, I mean, I was doing this statistical analysis that was I never freaking completely understood the statistics, honestly, because I don't think anyone in my sphere, I didn't. Maybe I should talk for my professors, but we were using the Poisson distribution to look for rare events to see if the climate for conflict management predicted EEOC claims in the unit, division, and the organization. So I had this idea of the nestedness of culture. So climate for conflict management, we used to differentiate between culture and climate, like culture being something that was more steady and consistent, and then climate being something that might fluctuate with, the things that affect businesses, like economics or war or, social movements and stuff like that. Um, and why I chose climate over culture is because I saw the conflict management and uh, the variables that would increase or decrease the amount of conflict in a workplace as being something that was definitely influenced by uh, other things, local activity outside of the organization. So I went with climate But no matter, what's important is, or what I think is interesting, is that idea of the nestedness has been percolating in me for a very long time. And through my awakening, which in my experience was like veils dropping so that I was no longer dissociated from what was happening right here, right now. And so my attention was here and I was able to look. I started to notice that the patterns are the same. They're not always a direct reflection, but they're information. The pattern of what you see happening in your relationship, pairwise, your important ones, your spouse, your children, your family, maybe your team at work, those patterns that you're seeing being presented to you, maybe consistently, there's some sort of reflection that of something that's happening inside yourself and the way that you are viewing, treating, behaving, and it's there for you to notice. So in other words, it truly is, in my direct experience, as I watch and as I rebuild, especially rebuild the building blocks of my life carefully from wisdom, where I now am have conscious relationship, I can see, I can witness the change inside to pairwise, to group. And the same dysfunctional patterns show up because I'm still working through dysfunctional patterns. And I see how that's reflected to me in the relationships and also the people who are attracted to me and in the situations that come to me. It's directly observable. So, all right. This has been coming through me for a long time. I guess that's what I can say. And you are getting the benefit of two consciousnesses, basically. The old standard consciousness, where I truly was a committed allopathic atheist. I mean, I was a do-gooder, social justice warrior, compassionate person, but I truly did believe I was privileged and I deserved it. And now I realize I was privileged and I was lucky because I'm no better or worse than anybody else. We all get to be our unique self. And then I had the spiritual awakening, and now you get the benefit of a person who deeply feels the connectedness of everything and all that is, and is deeply connected, committed to walking that path, and deeply believes in a higher power that is benevolent. It's got to be a lighter word than benevolent. It's more neutral than that. It's not benevolent to the ego, but it's benevolent to the entire project, which we're not sure what that is. And I'm not going to go into that. So my most compassionate story is going to be probably metaphysics light, because I don't think it's necessary. All right. I think that's enough for today. Thank you for anybody who's listened. Have a great day.